Hey guys, welcome back to my parents' front yard. Today I want to talk to you guys about intermixing herbs and other plants into your aesthetic or ornamental garden. Now, a lot of us separate the two. We're like, I want my veggies and my planter beds and my ornamental or flowering plants in the ground, but you can definitely mix them up, and some plants do better than others. So here's a few things you might want to keep in mind if you decide that you want to mix in some herbs and plants into your garden. So one of the first things that I like to consider when mixing it in the ground is, do we have a lot of pests in the area? And so I know in this front yard, they get a lot of bunnies. And so if I put parsley and cilantro, actually I'm not as sure about cilantro, but parsley for sure, and celery, those bunnies would absolutely love it, and they would be here all day long, which would be super cute, but kind of a waste of my time in terms of planting vegetables. So I picked some onions, which I know they're not going to like, or not like very much. And then we have Elfin Thyme, which I absolutely love. It's this really tight growing little thyme. It smells good. We actually use this all the time ornamentally in people's gardens, in between flagstone steps. It's so little, it only gets like an inch or so, but you can eat it, which is great. So I want to put this in and around the yard, and that's going to be a low spreader. And then we have another type of thyme. There's a lot of thymes out there. This is an English thyme, and I picked it because I like the taste. So this is going to get a little bigger. It's going to raise up a little bit more, but again, most of the plants I've showed you so far have a really strong taste to them, and bunnies are not going to like them as much. And then of course, oregano. Again, there's a lot of types of oregano, but they have that oil on their leaves that a lot of pests will leave them alone. And then this is a replacement. I've had a few artichokes in my parents' yards over time, and the last one died. It's fine. So we're gonna replant that one, and I love putting it kind of up front and center in the garden because they have these really beautiful flowers if my parents decide or forget, which is really what happens, to harvest them. So if they let the fruit go to seed or go to flower, they are really, really beautiful. But I also think they're really beautiful architectural plants. So if you're looking for a modern design, you want to line these up in a row, this is a really cool plant. It gets about 3.5 to 4 feet depending on which variety you get. And then I'm gonna try out kale. Don't look, I didn't water these last 2 days, but this is gonna perk right back up when I plant it. But this is like a kale bouquet. They call it storm kale, but it just is a few different types of kale. Now, I do feel like this might get eaten, but we're gonna give it a go and see what happens. And then lastly, I have a lemongrass, which I'm super excited about. I love the taste of Thai food and Indian food, and there's 2 types of lemongrass. So this one is the West Indian lemongrass, and this one likes its feet to stay wet most of the time. So we're actually gonna plant this one in the pond. One more, this is not an ornamental or an herb, but I saw this when I was buying the other vegetables, and we have one in the background right there. And it's so lonely that I really like to have some repetition in the yard, especially when it's a small yard, that I was like, it needs a buddy. So this is gonna go on the other side of the pond just to kind of balance the color. So when you are doing your ornamental herbs, you definitely don't wanna forget about the rest of the garden too. So you don't have to add a soil mix, but I do recommend it. A lot of times your herbs are really wanting a lot of extra nutrients and minerals and stuff like that. So mixing in a planting mix, which conditions the soil, or a soil booster is a good idea. This is what I'd recommend. You can do a combination of both or one or the other. And I think your herbs and ornamental plants will really enjoy that extra little nutrients mixed in. Now, you definitely want to mix it in with the native soil. You don't want to just put it in a soup of brand new fresh soil, because they're going to love it so much. They're not going to explore into the native soil. You really want those roots to go down, lock into the native soil where there's nutrients down there, but also there's usually more moisture down there. So when the hot weather, you want your roots deep. The Artichoke Imperial Star, Cinera scolimus, this is going to get about 4 feet tall and wide. You want to water it daily until it's established, especially during dry spells. You want to grow it in rich soil, even moisture soil with good drainage. It loves full sun, and the young buds can be cooked and served with butter or used as cut flowers, which are great, and it will harvest in about 95 days. The flavor is a mild flavor, and they're 4-inch diameter artichokes. They're slow to open, and they're thornless, so it's easier to harvest, and they produce artichokes in their first year. All right, so the first plant I want to start with is an artichoke. I love artichokes, and I think they look so beautiful in the yard, the silvery foliage. So there's a handful out there that are really popular. I wasn't too picky, to be honest. This is what they had at the nursery, and this is what we're getting. It's the Imperial Star, but what I'm excited about for this one is their buds or blooms are about 4 inches, which is great. Now, this plant, and that's what you eat, the bloom. Well, before it blooms, you eat the bud. This plant in particular wants to be 3.5 feet, 4 feet or so. So I want to give it plenty of space around here, which as you can see, there's not a lot. It's not going to be overcrowded. It's going to get plenty full sun, which this is going to absolutely love. Now, I had one here a year or two ago, and I still have a valve A little drip irrigation. Oh yeah, it's been watering the dirt. So that's where I'm gonna plant it. First, I wanna move the soil or the mulch out of the way, and I'm gonna put it right back when I'm done. I wanna be able to get into the dirt here and try not to punch through the irrigation. There it is. So with that said, I'm gonna put this plant here. Honestly, I can totally just move my irrigation too. It's not that hard, but hey, it's there and there's an open space. I really like seeing that the mulch is decomposing into the soil on the top there. That's exactly what we want. Okay, and then I'm gonna mix in a little soil booster. There's more graceful ways to do that. So I'm just gonna throw it in and around and mix in a little planting mix because I have it. There we go. All right, so that's a good, nice mix. I do want to make sure that the bottom is kind of solid though. You don't want your plant to sink over time, and oftentimes there's a lot of airspace and soil, so you kind of want to get that up to the right height. And of course we have a layer of mulch, so just get that nice and solid. That's about right there. One more. And I never thought I'd have to say this, but I literally went to a client's yard the other day and they had full-on 15-gallon trees planted in the containers. They were like 7 years old and the roots have just been, you know, going in circles. So take off the container. And then another thing to note is you don't want to go higher than where the soil already is. So we're just going right up to that height. Oh, look at a big worm. This is exactly what we want to see. This is great. I could give it to the fish, but I'll keep it for my plant. So now it has really nice nutrient-rich soil surrounding it, about 1.5 foot big hole for this 4-inch plant. It's going to do well here, and then let me double check my irrigation. We should be good. One thing that I do like is that the soil is already moist here. It's always a good idea to water before you put it in, especially since I missed a watering or two the day before on this, is the surrounding soil, if it's dry, will suck the moisture right out of this plant. So making sure you water right after or before is always a good idea. Okay, I'm gonna rake this back. Whoop. There we go, and I can still see my emitter, so I can make sure that it's good and it's watering. So this is Thymus seraphyllum, also known as Elfin Thyme, and it tolerates really poor soil, which is great, making it very versatile. It loves heat, and it does great with drought. It does best in the full sun, and it likes well-drained soil, and ideally it can dry out in between waterings. So you want to pair it with other plants that have that Mediterranean background where you water it, let it dry out a little, and water it again. All right, so another plant I love, which we talked about earlier, is the Elfin Thyme. It's just the cutest. It does love full sun as well. Most of your herbs are gonna like full sun, but this is such a good plant for ornamental use too. So again, I use it all the time. This one's a little root bound, so I'm just gonna break it up a little. I'm sure you've seen this before, but when the roots circle like that, it's nice to kind of rough them up a little so that they grow out into the soil and don't continue the conditioning that they have, which is to grow in a circle. So I'm just gonna place this little square of Elfin Thyme right here. Now, one thing, Banjo, you're in the way. You are in the way. Get out. So one thing I want to keep in mind is because we have this in the front yard and people love to come look at the pond and say hi to the fish, this might get trampled on. A dog might pee on this here, so it might not be the best edible example, but I think it's going to work great here as a transition plant because it's so low. It'll just fill in this area here. I have another thyme that I'll probably use to eat out of. So this one I'm mostly using as an ornamental, even though you could eat it if you wanted to, if you're willing to take that risk. All right, this is Greek oregano, and again, it gets about 12 to 18 inches tall. It does great in containers and borders. It loves full sun and well-drained soil. You want to water it sparingly, so again, let it get watered, let it dry out, water it again. All right, next I'm going to plant our oregano, which can get between 12 to 18 inches or so. I think this is a nice spot on the corner of the garden, expecting it to get right about here-ish versus the Elfin Thyme, which is going to stay really low in front of it. I don't use a lot of oregano. I really want to, so if you guys have good recipes or ways that you use it, let me know. I just know it's like a good one to have. The variety I picked was a Greek oregano, and honestly that was just because I read the tag. I'm like, sounds good. All right, there we go. It's not root bound. And again, I love that the soil has some moisture already to it. That's really going to help this get nice and established. I will water them in still right after and pay a little more attention to the watering right after they're planted, but ideally they're going to get rooted and be happy in about a week or two, and I can pay less attention to them. Here we go. All right, got thin mulch over here. I think I need to spruce it up, pushing this back in maybe. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna plant this guy. It is not an ornamental, but again, I want that color repetition in the yard and something you want to think about. So this is called Osteospermum, and this one is Serenity Red. I just love this deep red color. So Osteospermum is also known as Freeway Daisy. Because it grows so easily in so many places. But hey, I don't like to judge. It's a common plant. It's like not a fancy plant, but it brings beautiful color. And sometimes that's why, you know, they're tried and true. So not a severe botanical interest or anything, but it looks great in the yard. And he's a little dry, so we'll have to definitely water him in. You want to dig, Banjo? This is too dry. There's no moisture in the soil, and you can tell because it's just dusting. So I'll add some organics, like we said, and make sure that it's getting watered. All right, again, mixing that dry native stuff with this organic mix. So I definitely need to check the irrigation because there was an emitter up here and it's quite dry. This is English thyme, Thymus vulgaris, and it is fragrant. It has these gray-green leaves, and they also have tiny little lilac flowers, which are really beautiful, but I'm planting this one to eat for the most part. And so this is gonna grow about 6 to 8 inches tall and about 12 to 24 inches wide. It's great as a border or container plant in the ground or in a pot, whatever is easiest, and it does like a lot of light and well-drained soil. All right, so this is the English thyme, which is gonna get a little bit taller. That's why I'm tucking it in the back, and this is what I'm gonna plan on eating. Probably not the Elfin Thyme in the front. It kind of looks like a purslane weed, if I'm completely honest, but it's gonna get bigger and not look like a weed, so hopefully my dad doesn't pull it. You know what? He'll get a label. There we go. Yeah, you definitely need some water. So let's talk about onions a little bit. I really love onions for cooking. I'll put them in anything. I'll saute them with tomatoes and a little olive oil and salt. They're super yummy. So I have not planted them in the garden before, so it's a total experiment, but I do know that rabbits generally don't like tomatoes. I mean onions, they generally don't like onions, so they should be good. These I'm gonna space out about every 6 to 18 inches. I'll probably split the difference. I'm gonna put them right in front here. They do wanna have moisture to continue that growth, so that's great because I already have the irrigation there again. And then with the onions in particular, I'll plant them, and once all the tops die and kind of go brown, then I'm going to pull them up and leave them on top of the soil for 2 to 3 days, and then they'll be ready to eat. But that'll be a little while from now. Let's just get them in. Go ahead and pull back the mulch again. Alrighty. Kind of in the way, I suppose. Now this is kind of low. I can build this up a little bit. They smell so good. Okay, here's my next hole. Come here, little guy. And these guys are desperate for some water. All right, so we got 3. It's fine. These guys are pretty little. Ideally, you want to keep most of the soil on. I'm not too worried about these, but when we do ornamental plants and a lot of the soil falls off with the root of the plants, depending on what type of plant it is, it can be harder for the plant to go ahead and pick up and do well right away, because it's actually the really fine roots that you don't see that are often the ones taking up a lot of the moisture. So when the soil falls off, those little hairline or hair with little roots break off and they have to regrow those. So ideally you can keep the soil together. All right, there we go, our last little guy here. These I'm going to need to probably irrigate by hand more often. I like to add the mulch around because that's going to help keep moisture in the soil. It basically shades it from the sun. It doesn't dry out nearly as fast. With onions especially, because they like that moisture. So these fully mulched. Okay. Oops. I don't want to get mulch in my hands. do what it's gonna do. This is Cymbopogon substratus, and it's a tropical clumping evergreen grass, and it has really rich aroma to the leaves, and the fragrance is amazing. It smells like a lemon. People love using it for cooking, and this variety is definitely the preferred one for culinary purposes. It loves full sun. It'll get about 3 feet tall or taller and about 2 feet wide. All right, lastly, we're gonna plant this Cymbopogon citralis, which is one of the varieties of lemongrass. This is the more desirable one in terms of culinary purposes. It has a richer, stronger flavor, a richer aroma and stronger flavor. So this will grow fairly easily in this climate. If it gets below about 40 degrees or so, this is something that you'd want to bring in the winter, put it in a pot or something like that. Otherwise, it probably won't survive the winter depending on where you live. But out here in San Diego and Southern California, it's not really an issue for us. So it does like constant moisture, and it actually will do okay with having wet feet all the time. So we're gonna plant this in the pond. Now, I don't want this to completely take over and be difficult to remove because it is a grass. It has lots of roots, and if you're familiar with how grass, especially ornamental grass, grows, they put out a ton of fibrous roots that really spread a lot. It'd be hard to totally remove from the pond that way. As you can see, this canna was planted in the pond, which is great because it really does help filter the water. It's an important part of the ecosystem here, but it's really hard to maintain. It easily tries to grow across here, and I want to kind of avoid that with this here. So that guy's going to stay. We just maintain it regularly, but this guy gets to live in a pot. So taking it out of here, I do want to put some potting mix in, and it's a little loose. I'm also going to add some rocks, and this is going to weigh down my pot so that it doesn't float away. But the nice thing about putting it in this 1 gallon pot is it's way more manageable, and so this can easily get 3 feet tall. I've heard some people have theirs 5 feet tall, especially if you're stuck with constant moisture and it's being fertilized by the fish poop. It's definitely going to have everything it needs to grow big and vigorous and strong. So that's why putting it in here is my game plan. I haven't cooked a lot with lemongrass, but I absolutely love it when other people do, so maybe this will inspire me to learn some different Asian dishes to cook. Kind of want to pack this nice and full. And there we go. You can also propagate these so easily. So this will be a plant that will continue to give and give and give. So for me, no! I was trying to keep my glove dry. Well, I was trying to keep my glove dry, but I guess we're on our last plant, so we're good. All right, here we go. So I'm just gonna tuck it in the corner here. I don't love that I'm getting soil floating through here, but eventually that will settle. And this will soak moisture up, and it'll be constantly have a little bit of moisture, so this should do well. When this gets a little tall, I'll probably thin it out, break it off, use some for cooking, might just get rid of some, give some away. We'll see how it goes. A lot of this is the first time I've done some of these things with the lemongrass, with the onions, so make sure you follow along to see how it turns out. We'll go ahead and post a few update videos, and I look forward to showing you how things grow in. We're in late winter right now, but it's in Southern California, so it's a great time to be planting. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, especially to see how this comes along. Again, some of them were a little bit of an experiment, but they should do great. And honestly, mixing in herbs and vegetables in your garden is not a really big deal. It's a great way to bring in your food into your house, and we'll post how the project does over time so you can see how everything grows in.